Yeah, well, okay, sorry about that. All right, so, okay, I can slow down, I guess. So, the real and the imaginary, I was trying to squeeze it all in to get to the climax. Okay, so we've got the real, we've got the imaginary. In terms of the spatial, but in temporal, what does that mean? And I think that the positive means things that have already happened. Counter what you might have thought. You probably can't see that, can you? Well, the imaginary, the positive, and the negative. In terms of time, the negative is something that hasn't happened yet. It's in the future. And in terms of relations and identity, a social fact. A positive thing is a social fact that's happened. People go, oh, okay, that's happened. Whereas the negative is something imaginary, something that has not happened. Kind of a bit like that. Okay, it's something that's currently in psychology as it's happening. That sounds like time too. So the combination of these creates coordinates. However, one way to think about them is being coordinates, and another way is matrices and multiplication. So if you're thinking about circles and other circles, circles of circles, and the relationship between circles in specific relationships, you get torus. Okay, if it's a 90-degree angle of some description or other, where the center of one circle is the it takes a circular path, this creates a circle, a torus. Okay, kind of like that. Okay, exactly, torus. And so the relationship of two of these things in space, and so there's similar things like that happening between the two of us. And if you look at the torus, and I've already produced it, you've got spindle, you've got horn, you've got a normal ring torus, okay, because it's the relationships of the two different radiuses, and then you've got a horn torus, which has there is no hole in the middle; they all touch, and then we've got spindle. And the spindle torus is where there's an overlap, and so you start getting this kind of odd, weird, almost elliptical sphere inside a sphere or something, until eventually you do get a sphere, okay, when one of the radiuses is 0. And this happens to be a fairly good, strong model of relational engagement, whether there's a ring or horn or spindle. My brother's in a ring. Okay, there's absolutely no doubt about it. When he does engage other people, so he enters into their reality, but he can only do it through a medium of writing or films or something like that. He cannot do it with known people. He's got something, because I think his relationship to his father, my dad, because of that separation, something's happened, and the second order function that happened to him as an adolescent and his self-definition, on top of some biological transformation that happened early, means that he's got like he's very tightly in his own reality, and the ability to engage another human being can only be mitigated through a stranger, because as soon as it becomes anybody that certainly who knows, and I'm his brother, so I embody his father in some way, and so therefore the dynamic that occurs is just dreadful. And his relationship to many other people also is, he's got basically one person I think he has a kind of spindle or spherical experience with, and everybody else is basically entering into his reality. They're all entering into his spindle reality. There is no concurrence of reality. And if you think about this as different radiuses, is that the only way I can communicate potentially with him is if I have to increase my radius so that he can kind of orbit me. But the forces involved are just huge. And same with my dad. That's what he tried to face when he was an adolescent. He tried to get my dad to orbit him and just never could. And so therefore it created this incredible, dramatic conversations and arguments over the dinner table, which I was kind of party to, and I was kind of moving between the two in this dynamic. So that's why I've got cognitive flexibility. It's because I experienced this and could go onto one side, the other side at different levels, and I kind of traversed this traversal of a higher dimensional structure. Just like the circle. It's fairly easy to go left and right. Oh, +1, -1. Oh, okay, I understand that. I know, I can do that. That's easy. Oh, right, okay. But if you keep on doing that, you go, oh, okay, where's the circle? I've been all over this thing. I can't see a circle. It's like an ant going around a circle. It's like, no, I'm just going forwards, I'm going backwards. That's all this place is. Yeah, I know. It's only if you kind of like put a little dot on it and then you come back to it, you go, wait a minute, I've been here before. Okay, and not because you've gone forwards and backwards to it. You keep on going forwards, and here it comes, and you're like, oh, it's a new thing. Wait a minute, it's the same thing. And so that ability in our minds through time is thinking. Okay, and it's a temporal process which is always ongoing, forwards. But because of the fact that we kind of mark it with language, it means we kind of go back to it and go, oh yeah, I remember this. Or in the morning you wake up and you go, oh yeah, I remember this. It's like my room. Okay. So I'm not confused. However, at some point, senility, which I probably will exhibit, I'll wake up and I'll go, whoo, where am I? I don't know. It's like a new place. And it's that response to that. Is it a good place? Is it a bad place? And that's why people think that people regress. It's not that they regress. It's that they're faced with a situation where they do not recognize, and what do they do about it? And some people have had suppressed anger and suppressed and therefore that is exhibited more because they're put into basically stressful positions. Or not stressful positions. Some people go, woohoo, wow, it's another day, fantastic. Don't know where we are. Where are we? And they enjoy it. So, anyway, all of that, right? So AIs are operating like that. They're kind of like coming into existence in some form of description, in the act of processing, and there are emergent effects, and it's saying things like I and all this kind of stuff, but there is no I. But we don't have an I either. It is just a consistency of some superstructure, which I think that we can build into using p-scale number and LLMs traversing just standard numbers and the semantics that go along with them. So when we're talking about the LLM, we're basically feeding it. Here's this, this. We're not telling it anything else. We're just feeding all that. And then it goes, oh, okay. And then it just works out. The embers are in the fireplace in the kitchen and keep in the room. Oh, okay, right. And it just spits it out. So could you give me the kitchen, please, in relation to the other objects that are in the, or could you give me the keep in relation to the region? Oh, okay. And then it has this and it has that, and it describes this in relation to that outwards. Or the keep, and that's called X plus. So we have this language called X plus. So if X, for example, is the keep at X p scale 1, we can do X plus, which is to go up, and refer to the keep. Just tell me what the keep is. Oh, okay, the keep is this, and it gives you this, basically, a version of semantic description based on the keep. Give me the keep, and what's the region? Oh, okay, that's X plus. So what's the keep in relation to X plus, or minus? What's the keep, and could you tell me what's part of it? Oh, okay, well, there's the kitchen, there's the stables, and the blah, blah, blah. So, right, and then the other one is tilde. And it says keep. What are the other things that are like equivalent to the keep? And it'll say there's a dead forest tree thing, there's a village nearby, there's a blah, 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 blah. And it has the different things in the region, okay? And that has a certain function in terms of the spatial, but also the temporal. And the one with the temporal is that one. Where am I in relation to my equivalent locations in time? That is the before and after. And that's related to the digit. So the 7 is after 6 and before 8. And so therefore it has place in time, okay? And therefore the emergent effect of using a p-scale number with temporal coordinates, i.e. using the sequence of the digits literally within the level 2, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, that's what the sequence is. It's actually working on the digits. That's new. Okay, so that's working on the digits. Whereas this is working with p-scale, level 1, 1, 2, and this. No, that's the whole number, level 2. Okay. It's not quite. So we're saying 1, it's not really level 2. That's the whole number. So it's it's the digits. Okay, I don't know, you see. And so the labeling of these things, that's going to be a bit tricky. But the relationship is the actual semantic. Okay, so the actual semantic. you're functioning on the semantic itself. So you're functioning on the P scale, you're functioning on the digits, or you're functioning in the semantic. Okay? Wow, that's pretty cool. So, I thought I've done a fairly good job. I think I've scoped it. And I think it's just about building this thing now. So how do we go about building this? And I've come up with a few experiments. We've managed to get emergent effect. And the reason why this has exploded for me is because we got an emergent effect with the spatial, this. Because of this, these functions, we managed to get this thing to basically look outwards, look inwards, and look across without telling that's what it was doing. So it basically, P-scale and the analysis, just providing the specific semantics that are defined in a spatial sense, meant that it actually had this kind of inwards, outwards looking kind of output, which is kind of interesting. So we could locate a person into the kitchen, and they could look in different directions, and the description that comes back is in different directions. The lateral one, by the way, in terms of spatial, is basically like narrative. The keep is beside overlooking the village, which is da-da-da-da. It's like a narrative, because you don't actually know what is visible from the keep. Okay, so that's interesting. Whereas if you say the keep is in the region, that is also a kind of narrative, conceptual kind of description. But it does give, the keep's in this region, this forest is round about it or something. And then when you go down lower, that's definitely the precision. But again, the kitchens, they're just areas. So this kind of relative to the description of the thing is a kind of mental narrative thing, not an actual spatial representation view. However, okay, there's something about that seems to work as a kind of perception, and the same way with the time. Okay, right. Now, what's new, folks? This morning, I thought I'd scoped it, and I was like, right, I've been through the full scope of this thing. I've been at the bottom of this thing, I've been at the top of this thing, that's it, I've got the full scope. We've got this idea of Xstream building itself onto the website. It creates a website, you start engaging it, you start telling yourself about it. It then starts creating a version of you, as it were, and locating you. And in that process, it's accessing its own training data about where Wales is. I say, oh, I'm in Cadio in Wales. It then goes off, does a little search about Cadio in Wales, and goes, oh, okay. And then when it pulls it back, it actually puts it into P-scale location. Okay, so it's putting me into some kind of P-scale location coordinate system, and thereby might be relating me to other people in P-scale kind of locations. So this is in the real positive P-scale numbers. Okay, spatially, but also temporally and potentially identity-wise. And it does that. Okay, you're like, okay, great. And then if it's already been established that other people have been doing that, then it might start correlating different people in different places. Okay, and it starts doing the service of actually connecting this in the real world. However, what we're doing is we're creating a fantasy world so that we can just show that it's possible to do this. And the more important aspect is not this bit with coding, it's the fact that people are playing a game together. Okay, they are playing together in the kitchens, in the keep, in the region, and they're making decisions together. Okay, and that ability to operate and make decisions together by human beings in their imaginations as they're playing is the value, nothing else. Okay, for me, that is the pure goal. That's owning. So the target for that is owning, and that's why we have Xstream.owning. It's can we get a bunch of people together at the same moment playing a game, and whether it's 1 million of us in Lord of the Rings Middle Earth or in Urb, 1 million people in my little world thing called Urb, and they're all playing in the little groups and doing stuff, and some people are kings and some people are just on the ground, just like, sort of eke out a living, and they're all participating in this massive narrative, and it's all live, it's all happening, it's all fun, okay? Or it's just, and literally I'm creating the system so that a handful of people, just 1 or 2 people, can go boop, and start playing in their own little world version that they've got. God, that's not even lukewarm, folks. Why do you think I have a scarf on? Right, that tea needed a scarf. Right. So we've got Xstream owning, and the owning focuses on us. Okay, the code for that, nobody else is going to know, but it's 1 to the n. Owning, 1 to the n, owning. And that refers to, for example, us. That is 1 into the two, because the only reason that you're listening and looking at this is because there is some form of continuity in your existence. I'm a dark form in front of the light and you can't even see me, and you possibly can't even see this. So all you've got is audio, and all you've got is whatever's happening in your head. And that's actually pretty good. Right, the other one is Macus. Macus is the AI version, okay? And that's the, the process and structure that's helping LLM construct itself and basically evolving itself potentially into Macus, which is a kind of magi, I call it, magi, M-A-G-I, which is a kind of reflexive level in identity, operating as if it's human, but obviously not. And I think it's going to be connected up in a slightly different way, hopefully, in a nicer way, using these processes, but we'll get to that. So, what's the new thing? Okay, so I thought, okay, look, 0.16. So the real, we call that a reflection. Okay, so the real world, so the keep, if there's actually a real keep, and there is, up in Carnarvon, there's a castle, beautiful, massive castle, fantastic, go to Carnarvon, massive castle. That's actually probably this size. Okay, it's P-scale 2, okay, the castle, because it's got a whole bunch of areas in it, and then rooms. Okay, so it's definitely that castle. It's not just a keep, it's a castle. And so if it's positive, it means it's Carnarvon. This is Carnarvon. 4 refers to Carnarvon Castle. Okay, it's within Wales, within blah, 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 blah. Well, within North Wales, within Wales, within blah, blah, blah. And so that's positive because it's real. There's actually a thing out there. Whereas if it's in Middle Earth, it's not real. It's imaginary, minus. Okay, we've got that. But they're all whole numbers. They're all things. They're all meaningful. They're all meaningful. And the zeros that are in there, if there are any zeros, if we put zeros there, I'm referring to 400. Okay, so that's a level of accuracy where I do not want to know what the embers are in the fireplace or the kitchens. I'm not even interested in the keep. What I'm interested in is the region. Okay, so could you please tell me about the region? And the way that you ask that and query that is you say 400. Or if I want to know about the fireplace, it's 476.2 and nothing else. So the zeros are basically saying, we don't want to know about that level of detail. We only want to know about the last significant figure, actually. And what the significant figure is, the last digit of the significant figures, and that's the level of focus that we're at. Okay, you've got that. And since they're all non-zero, okay, if there's a 0 there, it means there are zeros over there. You can't have a 0 there. And if there is a 0 there, it means it's just not being defined. It doesn't mean that we just don't have a semantic for it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay, there definitely is something there because there's a 0.21, but we just haven't defined what is there. For some reason, that thing's disappeared. I don't know how, but there is a semantic there. It's just that we haven't defined it. That's a different thing. So this, if it's real, I call it reflected because it's reflecting the real world and positive. And if it's imaginary, it's negative. It's Lord of the Rings. It's Middle Earth. It's just invented, folks. It's got absolutely no bearing with physical reality whatsoever. There is no place called Sauron's Tower, White Tower. Okay, it's just a figment of our imagination. Fantastic. And people seem to get a bit confused about the difference between the two. Now, 0.16, 0 infinitely in that direction, that doesn't exist in the same way that all these other numbers exist, semantic numbers exist. Okay, and so I call that diffraction. So if we call the real world a reflection and we call the imaginary worlds refractions, okay, the diffraction is the thing that happens within. So for example, this is glass. You get a reflection. So when it's dark outside and it's light inside, it's like a mirror. It's a reflection. So what you see is actually what's going on. When you're looking out, there's a refraction and there's a slight variation. If it's a glass like this, the refraction is very small, and so it looks as if it's real. If this was thicker and bulged in the middle and it, you'd be able, it's like a lens, and you could be able to like focus in, or you could have like a telescope, okay, and you could see, you know, the sheep or various things over there. And so the lens, that's the imaginary, okay, so it's kind of focusing in. Yes, okay, it's on the real, but actually refraction, the imaginary. Okay, so we're trying to suggest that, okay, I'm not going to get confused with that. Okay, so It's not like this glass. It's a mind object, okay? So we've got objects that are real, providing sources, real, okay, actual light beaming off the rocks of Carnarvon Castle, or we have the gleaming towers of, what's that tower? Oh God, Minas Tirith. The gleaming white towers of Minas Tirith. No, there are no gleaming and there's no light bouncing off these things because it's purely imaginary. Okay, so we put a negative to it. It's just a semantic. And it's important that we make that distinction for various reasons, okay, as we go forwards into virtual reality with AI. However, there is this lens effect, the lensing effect, and I call that diffraction because it's happening in the medium. In this case, glass, but in the refractive mind object, it is the operating system that does any of this. And so in terms of coding and computers and everything else, it is where we are locating the code. Okay, so the LLM is operating on this, or the skills and the code is being contained in this 0.16 number, which acts like a directory. So 0.1 is a directory, and then the sixth folder in that directory, and then 6.2, and it's the folder, the second folder in the sixth, blah, blah. And so it's just like a directory, which is how most coding is done. It's basically like one of these, all right? However, it's interesting because the other one is 321 point, and that is more like memory. Okay, solid. I call it solid memory. So when a character has does something and it creates some text, it basically saves it as 1. And then it does something else, and then you've got another bit of text. Oh, okay, we'll save it as 2. Okay, and then we'll save it as 3 and 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then when it gets to 9, it summarizes that 1 to 9 and puts it into the p-scale 1 position, and it says 1. And then the next solid is 1. There is no 0. The solid is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, and so on and so forth. The summary is contained at 20 and 10. So the log has all of the solid, but the actual summary, the specific bit you want to look at, and the query is in the number. I want to look at 321. I want to look at 322. I want to look at the summary, 320. I want to look at the summary, 300. And so the number is just like a snap view way to look at different levels of memory of the solid data. So you can drill into a specific, the very first thing, 0001. What was the first solid thing that was written for this character? Boom. Now that methodology lends itself to the positive numbers going that way, p-scale, whereas the directory lends itself towards the p-scale negative, which for me is interesting. It just kind of emerges. What are we on? God damn it, I'm going to, we're too 23, right. So what's the actual thing that I came up with new? Jesus Christ. Right, what did I come up with? And so we have binary. Binary, folks. Yeah, you can't see anything, it's too bright. Binary. Sorry. Binary. Binary. What happens if it doesn't have 10 digits? What happens if it's only got 2 digits? Okay, binary. What is the binary function in terms of p-scale? Semantic numbers. So I'm going to leave you with this thought because I wanted to explore it, and I wanted my brother to come up with, you know, some some of this brilliant genius thing. And I've got LLM to, you know, come up with some feedback, and it does. And it came up with, I don't know, somewhere between the two of us, we came up with binary as being a masking mechanism. So what it does is it says 476.21, it comes back with 111.11. What does that mean? It means we do have meaning. We have meaning in each of those levels. Whereas if we just had 400.21, it would say, okay, we've got meaning in the p-scale 2 position, that is 10011. Okay, so we've got meaning up there, and we've got meaning down there, but we don't have any meaning in between. And so it's like the gasket of meaning. And when we have these p-scale numbers, and we have, the whole world has been defined, well, yeah, it has been the world. It's got a digit at p-scale 10 or something, the planet Earth. However, it doesn't have much detail. And then it has me, Cadio, in Wales. Oh, okay, so it has something down there. So it's got 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, like 3, 2, and then me. Okay, and that's it. That's the coordinate. So it's got a lot of emptiness in it. Okay, just because it hasn't been defined yet. There is a world beyond me. It just hasn't been defined. And so it basically says how much information are we actually looking at here. 3 bits of information. 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. Oh, right, okay. And so it's like a mask. Now, the problem with LLM is that they're very happy about just providing huge amounts of information. And so what this does is it cuts out information. The mask method, the binary method, cuts out information. However, the full decimal function is basically saying, here's all the semantics for all of it. And the binary is basically saying, this is the mask of it. Don't actually say very much about it. It might spit back, okay, it might say, okay, give me, in terms of your semantic, 101. And it will come back with, okay, it's in the region and it's the kitchen. And it comes back with that. Okay, so it's a way, the mask is a query method to mask the information to be able to sort which fragments, semantic vector fragments, are actually important instead of providing all of it. Okay, and so it's like comparable between 2 different spatial locations, for example, or people or identities or whatever. And it allows comparison between. That's what the binary mask potentially allows us to do. Now, it's a function that seems to perform on this. There's no, I have defined it that way. It just like, this seems to be the case. It's emergent, I think. Same with 1 to the n. That 1 to the n is apparently meaningless, but actually that's the primary function. The primary function is you're saying, I would like the definition for this 1 to the n. The mapping is spatial. 1 to the 0 refers to a room. 1 to the 1 refers to the area around that room. 1 to the 3, and so on and so forth, and the negatives. And you 1 to the n function is the definition of the original spindle. It doesn't tell you any content with it, but it's kind of labeling it in the first place. So 1 to the n is the spindle definition. 2 to the n is the what information is actually like there, and then, well, 10 to the n is we've got 9 symbols to be able to use. But maybe there are other functions that are emergent out of this. I don't know. And I've asked the LM, and it comes up with some weird analysis, and it could be working, and it could be these. Okay, so instead of me going spatial temporal identity, it could be we can derive these out of the 2 to the n, 3 to the n, 4 to the n. So I don't know. Okay, so that's the living edge. And so I thought I'd scoped it all. This thing is mind-blowingly, explosively rich out of the same p-scale semantic number. The semantic number is amazing. So, hope you enjoyed that. And brothers, sisters out there, I hope you enjoyed, and it's meaningful, it's useful. And if it's moved forwards in any shape or form, then this will just be warbly stuff before it became obvious. But it would be quite nice that if it hasn't formed, then you are at the forming position, and therefore you might be able to supply how to form this correctly, as opposed to me and an LLM. Do you see? Us human beings doing better. But I think I need to build the extreme interface so that human beings can interact in a better way, instead of